Hello everyone, it's Silvia from Tarot. Welcome to my channel and welcome to the great deck cull of mid-year 2023. So as you can imagine, this video is about all of the decks that have been in my purgatory shelf for quite some time now, and my process is this: whenever I put a deck in that shelf, I'm not going to rehome it straight away. I'm just going to wait a while and see whether perhaps I change my mind, perhaps I find different types of practice in, users in my practice for that particular deck, or there's perhaps another deck comes along that has very similar vibes and I want to use them up together. There's a number of reasons why I don't rehome decks straight away when I don't connect with them or when I put them in the purgatory shelf. And by the way, this is in no means a judgment on the quality of the decks, of the product themselves, or the artwork, or the artist, or the guidebooks. Absolutely not intended to be some kind of a judgment on their work. This is simply, in many cases, actually majority of cases, these are decks that I've actually used, perhaps a lot, perhaps a bit less, but I actually feel that for one reason or another, my journey with them has been as completed. It's done, it's finished, and therefore keeping them to just gather dust is actually not very respectful to the author of the decks, because I feel like there might be someone else out there that actually will enjoy these decks a lot more than I am at the moment. And as I said, this is really, some of these decks, as a matter of fact, I actually really love. Okay, but it's just that at this point in time, or perhaps 6 months ago, I felt like I needed to put them in the purgatory shelf because, let's face it, with all of the new decks coming in, obviously what happens is that on my desk, there's only so much room, so I will have to put them on the shelves, but even there's only so much room. So obviously they will go into one of the most remote shelves first, and then they will go in on a box, etc. So it is actually a way to revitalize those decks and bring them back to light. And if it still doesn't resonate with me after a few months, then I will be happy to rehome them because I know they're going to someone who's going to love them. Having said that, let's have a look at what I've got here. So we've got the Autonomic Tarot. Now, the Autonomic Tarot is a very special by Sophie Hollington and David Keenan. So this is a collaboration, obviously, between the two. It says that this is a deck that retains the umbilical to the card's archaic roots, yet future visions it as a glam punk portal deep into the now. It should actually accompany the book, To Run Wild in It, published by Rough Trade Books. I don't have the book. Maybe that's one of the reasons why I could never really connect with this deck. As a matter of fact, I never really, it's definitely my fault. So again, I am not expressing a judgment on the deck or the authors. This is very personal, it's just me. Whenever I buy a book, for example, sometimes I have the right to say that I don't like it, or in many cases I like it so much that I actually want to pass it on to someone else for them to read it. So this is exactly the same thing that I'm doing here. So this deck is actually very special. As I said, as you can see, it's a different number of cards. So we've got the 22 arcanas, the majors, even though I have been shuffling, so now it's all over the place. And it's got a bit of a thoughty kind of approach to the system. As you can tell, it's a very special kind of artwork. It does remind me a little bit of the, what's his name, Oliver Hibbert kind of decks. Which I don't have, but I would love to, but it's difficult to get for me. And it's just a really beautiful deck, but every time that I felt like using it, I could not really find a way to use it. So whenever it comes to the minors, for example, you only have let's say 2 cards for each and every minor, and that's the ace and the last card. And because it starts with the and then you obviously have the keyword, let's say. So you can tell, you can see that with all of them minus. And again, the artwork is very special. It's a very, very special deck. I wish by giving it to someone else, by rehoming it, that this person, the next owner, the next mum to this deck, will give it the right attention, you know, the right amount of attention and caring and affection that a deck needs. So this is the Autonomic Tarot. The second deck is the Margareta Peterson Tarot, and this is a pure style reason. The reason why I'm thinking about rehoming this is because I actually love this deck so much that I want to get the other version, the one with the maroon type borders. And this deck is rather large, so it has been trimmed by myself with a professional trimmer. So I've done a half decent job, I would say. I wasn't able to handle this deck before with the large borders. I kept the titles though at the bottom. This is a fantastic deck. It's a really beautiful one. It's got some incredibly interesting, busy and abstract kind of artwork. And yet again, it still retains the essence of the meaning of the card that is actually representing. I love this Three of Feathers. So I love this deck. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. And it's just a matter for me to find and get the edition with the maroon borders, simply because I feel that that border in that case is actually aesthetically more pleasing than the grey one. And that's all there is to it. So as soon as I find that maroon version, I think it's for an anniversary, a 2050 years anniversary of the deck. I could be wrong though. But look how beautiful this deck is. It's absolutely fantastic. And this goes to confirm what I was saying before. I've actually used this deck a lot. You know, I trimmed it for a reason. I trimmed it because I wanted to use it. And the only reason why I want to rehome it is simply because I want to get the other deck, the other version, and I'm going to use the other one. So this is the Margareta Peterson Tarot. And the next deck is exactly the same reason. So the Dreaming Way Tarot by Romy Choi. This is an incredibly beautiful deck. I really like it. It's published by US Games. I have trimmed it for the usual reasons. I'm not going to repeat myself all the time. So if you watch my channel, you will know I have injuries. So this deck is gorgeous, 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 gorgeous. I love everything about it. I have been using it quite a fair bit. I have been trimming it and I have been edging it, and I love doing the edging in this way. So the corners, let's say in a darker color rather than the center of the cards. It's really something that I spend, you know, a couple of hours doing this kind of modification to the deck, and I really bond with it. And the reason why I'm rehoming it, or I'm thinking about rehoming it, but now that I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh my goodness, it's so beautiful. I will definitely get another copy, and I will not trim the borders off this time. So just to give you an idea, this is what the cards look like with the border, and this is what they look like without the border. So as you can tell, the border is not obnoxious. It's just as you know, a slight, a smaller kind of border, white one. I go back and forth when it comes to borders. I don't know why I do that. It's just, I don't know. There was a time in which I was trimming everything. Seriously, I was trimming everything that I got. And in some cases, I have been known to buy a deck with borders just for the purpose of trimming the border. And I kid you not, it was probably during the lockdown, because at least I had some activities, some crafting activity to do, and I really, really enjoyed doing that. And I believe that in many cases, this deck and many of the cards, for example, actually come to life when they are borderless like that. It's just that in this case, right now, I feel like I just want the bordered version. So this is the Dreaming Way Tarot. And again, I seem to have found some kind of pattern into my rehoming. So this is the 8 Coins Tattoo Tarot. This was a very fun mod that I've done. So I trimmed off the borders, but I also etched it in this kind of, I don't know if you can tell, dull gold kind of edging. And it was so much fun. I enjoyed this deck very, very much. I really loved the tattoo style and the fact that even though obviously the tattoos are from a different tattoo artist, they don't look, they actually look cohesive, these cards. They look like, not necessarily they're being done by the same artist, because you can tell that there's difference in the artwork. But it feels like it's the cohesiveness comes from the theme of the fact that they are clearly tattoos. They do have that kind of really strong saturation in some colors, and the shading is done with the blacks, for example. And there's a lot of there's a very distinct kind of font type that you see in tattoos. And again, this was a rather larger kind of deck that I just couldn't really handle, and I really wanted to use it though, so I just went ahead and I trimmed the borders off, and this is the result. And again, because I do use a professional trimmer, the trimming is quite well done, I would say. I never had problems shuffling, but then again, unless the deck is small, I do only overhand shuffle rather than riffle and bridge. I can do it with some decks and not with others. It also depends on how supple the cardstock is. But again, this one, absolutely nothing wrong with it. It has been modded, and but in any case, I think that in this case I will not buy the new a new copy. Because I feel like I wouldn't use it. So this one is a bit of a both. Let's say it's because I've been trimming it and now I feel like I want borders again, but it's also because I feel like I've done whatever it is that I needed to do with this deck. So this is the 8 Coins Tattoo Tarot. And again, since we're talking about decks that I've modded and now I want to rehome, the Druidcraft Tarot, this was also another really, really fun kind of mod that I made, because it was also, as usual, trim off the borders down to the artwork. I didn't even keep the titles at the bottom. At the beginning I did, just to familiarize myself with the cards. But this is such an easy deck. This is the Druidcraft version of an RWS clone. So of course you will you will easily identify all of the cards, because they do retain that kind of sense to them. Now, the reason why I'm rehoming this one is that I think that I used a little bit too much ink when I've done the edging. Again, I used one first coat with a lighter color and then a slightly darker brown, and then an even darker one on the corners. And I thought it was looking really nice, which is sort of is, but I don't know why, but perhaps the ink penetrated in the cardstock, and that's now, as you can tell, it's got a very slight, not a lot, but you can tell there's got a slight bow to it. And also because of the fact that it's this kind of glossy cardstock. But again, it's a fantastic deck, and it's got a really interesting book. So it's one of those decks that it stayed on my purgatory shelf for a while because I wasn't necessarily using it. However, I never even considered rehoming it because I was actually reading the book, the guidebook. And now that I feel like I have read the guidebook and I kind of know it, and I'm ready, I feel like I'm ready to pass it on. So that's, that's the reason why this deck is here today. So this is the Druidcraft Tarot. And again, another mod. This is the Field Tarot by Hannah Elizabeth Fofana. Now, I don't see this deck very often, and I don't know why, because it's actually really beautiful. And this is again another case in which I actually worked a lot with this deck. Even though it looks pristine, I think it's a US Games publication. I love this edging. Again, I trimmed off the borders, and this deck is simply stunning. It looks like an artistic kind of collage. It's just really unique, really beautiful. I don't think it's rather pippish when it comes to the minors, as you can tell. I honestly don't think that I have another deck that actually covers this, so I will rehome this and definitely buy myself a new copy, because this is indeed a very unique, very beautiful deck. It does give out very similar vibes to the Maralun tarot, and I think it also shares some of the color palette, very similar at least. In some cases the Maralun can also be a little bit pippish. This one is definitely a lot more pippish, but there's nothing wrong with this deck. Again, really beautiful. Just trimmed it down. I don't necessarily like the shape now. It's become very elongated, so I would prefer, you know, to go back to the original with the borders. And I'm definitely gonna buy myself a new copy. Look at this, it's fantastic. I really like it. It's a beautiful, it's got one of the things that I really appreciate about this deck is, for example, that it's got a keyword for the cards, the minors, which actually makes it so that I can use this as an oracle deck the same way that I will use an oracle deck, because I just look at the keyword. And as a matter of fact, this one works really well with the Margarete Petersen. And just for you to see what I mean, I still have the Margarete here, so I'm just gonna give you a demonstration, because I think that I've done that a couple of times, but never on camera. And there is one of the very rare cases in which I actually use two tarot decks in a pairing. And as I was explaining, I don't remember when, in one of my other videos, I was explaining that I do see a case for using two tarot decks in a pairing, simply because we have the keywords on one of the two at least. So as you can see, these two pair up really well together. You know, success between the Father of Feathers and the Ten of Cups. Amazing. Ironically, when you pair them up, if I would eventually buy the bordered version of the Margarete and the bordered version of the Field Tarot, I'm not entirely sure that the combo will work as well, because obviously imagine there will be some maroon borders here and some white borders there. Oh Jesus, should I keep these two? I don't know. But now we're using them like this, I forgot how much I really love them together. This is really a beautiful combo, because somehow the Field Tarot is not as abstract as the Margarete Petersen, but you know, it just does remind it a little bit though. Generosity, oh, generosity between the Hierophant and the Six of Coins. Six of Coins is also seen as the generosity, was the Six of Discs, obviously it's the same card. Okay, should I keep them? Should I keep them? I don't know. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. I always really like interacting with you guys. I always appreciate you, you know, interacting with me, whether you just like the video, you subscribe to my channel, or you comment. I know that there's, you know, you can only comment if you have your own channel. It's a really weird policy by YouTube in which you cannot comment as a private. You need to, you know, start your own channel. As a matter of fact, whenever you do want to place a comment, they create a channel for you. Like I said, and I'm thinking, but why would you do that? I mean, you are actually deterring people from commenting. But I don't know, it's not for me to judge, of course. But I'm thinking I might actually keep these two. Oh, I should not have done this video. I should not have done this pairing, because now I'm thinking I really like them. And if I did get the bordered version of these two, I would not like this pairing. I know that, because it wouldn't feel the same, you know what I mean, with all of the borders. Definitely the maroon borders will create a bit of a barrier between the two. There won't be any flow, any conversation. I don't know, I need to think about it. But in any case, though, this is the Field Tarot and the Margarete Petersen Tarot. And the next deck is a bit of a painful thing to talk about, because this was the very first deck that I bought when I landed in Australia. I literally did the first one I bought when I got here, and I don't know, I worked a lot with this one. I also have the bigger book, like it's a kind of a journal, which is very, very interesting. This is one of the older editions, as you can tell, but I have trimmed it. And this is mainly the reason, and edged it. I do like my different color, my duotone edging, don't I? So I obviously kept the numbers and the scroll with the title of the keywords. I love this deck. It is absolutely adorable. I enjoy everything about it. I enjoy the muted color, not the muted, but the soft colors. I enjoy the keywords, are very interesting. I enjoy the association with the images, which is unique. And I also really like the way, so this is by Colette Baron-Reid, and I really like her. I like the way in which she, you know, set up the decks that she makes, but also the way she writes, what she associates with the description of the cards and the keywords as well. Some cards are really, really sweet. And I know that the more recent one has got a different kind of font, and probably not even the scroll, like a parchment, is it called? It's got like a banner instead. And I've heard a lot of people saying that it's not the best look. I haven't seen it much around. But I just feel like my work here is done. I had some fantastic years. This is one of my favorite cards. Look at that, Bone Collector. It's really beautiful. I've done my work with it, and now it's time for someone else to enjoy it. I just don't know whether, you know, I don't think I will buy the newer edition. I think this is one of those decks that I did what I had to do, and it gave me so much, and I'm so very grateful. And now I wanted to give something to somebody else as well. So this is the Enchanted Map Oracle card. So the next deck, this is the Dark Goddess Tarot. It's one of my favorite tarot decks. However, this version is kind of damaged. When I received it, it's the mass market version. It doesn't really show on camera, well, perhaps it does, but you see this line here? It came with an extra glue, like it felt like it was an extra glue here and here, where you can see, there you go, you probably see better. And that meant that I had to separate each and every one of the cards. And in some cases, you know, there was absolutely no problem. In other cases, there was literally some kind of tearing that I had to do, and let's see if I can find one. And I got really frustrated, and halfway through I realized that I could have sent it back if I had stopped tearing the cards apart. But then I looked back and I realized that I had, you know, damaged even further the deck. So I don't think, I didn't even try. You know, I didn't even try to, I didn't even try to send it back to Amazon, because I should have ever, see, even this one, there you go. So in some cases, when you receive a damaged deck, you have to send it back straight away. And not that they will make any problem when they realize that it was indeed damaged. Perhaps take photos, because you know, in my case, it was like, how am I going to explain that yes, it was damaged when I received it, and I tried to, you know, separate it, and in the process of trying and doing that, I actually made it even worse. And yeah, this one, for example, but you can't really tell on camera. It looks like it's fine. I can assure you it's not. Many of these cards have creases on them, because I literally have to, you know, and this one here, for example, I don't know if you can see, that's because it's missing a bit of a front. So you know, I can still use it, and I do, because I absolutely love the guidebook. The guidebook is fantastic, and some of the, I mean, using the Spider Woman for the stars, yes, and if you watch my channel, you know that I have this arachnophobia thing going on that I have to fight against each and every day of my life, because I live in Sydney, in an area where we have a lot of huntsman spiders, which are rather large. They are not harmful, but they are very large, and they're very, let's say, they do, you can't pretend not to see them. Okay, so let's put it this way. So for me to see and my favorite card in the major arcana is the Star card. So to see the Spider Woman in the Star card, you know, it's quite something. And I love Madame Brigitte. So this deck is absolutely gorgeous. I love it. I really, really love it. But I am going to order another copy and keeping my fingers crossed that it's not as damaged. I know I see now on camera, because I'm looking through the camera. Let's see if I can show you better. Maybe you can see there a little bit better. I promise you, I'm not whinging for nothing. It is actually damaged a lot more than you can tell from the camera. And that's the reason why I wanted to, and perhaps the new copy will be the same. I don't know. So in any case, this is the Dark Goddess Tarot. This is probably gonna shock everyone, but the Way Home Tarot, I really like it and I really enjoy it. But ever since I got the Lumina, I don't know, I feel like the Lumina covers more or less the same space as the Way Home. It's a beautiful deck. It's a pipish deck, but it packs a punch in the pips, because as you can tell, there's always a bit of an illusion of the meaning. You know, you're stuck between a rock and a hard place, and you're blindfolded, you don't have enough information, but if you don't make your choice soon, everything's going to fall apart because the rope is going to break. So I love the way it suggests the meaning of the cards, even though it is a pipish, let's say, deck. And I love the majors. They are absolutely beautiful. So there's absolutely, again, absolutely nothing wrong with this deck. I really enjoy it. I'm not overly enthusiastic about the way in which the court cards are depicted, but that is just me. It's something personal. We're entitled to have our own opinions and you know, taste, but that is not the reason why. And what is this one doing? This is the Naked Heart. See what I mean? Sometimes I use the decks together and then, you know, this happens and I'm like, okay, let's keep ahead. That didn't happen. You didn't see that. So in any case, this is a beautiful deck, and I've got nothing, as I said before, I got nothing against it. I've actually been using it so many times, and I absolutely love this card. This card is absolutely gorgeous, but it reminds me so much of many of the cards in the Lumina tarot, that as a matter of fact, I don't feel like I need this deck. So I cannot, whenever I feel in a certain disposition to use a deck like this, I just reach out for the Lumina. I don't reach out for this one, which is a pity, because again, it's such a beautiful deck that it should be used. It should be, you know, it should be something that is part of your practice on a daily basis if you need to be. And perhaps there is someone out there that will use it every day. And I don't have any problem in this person to receive this deck. So this is the Way Home Tarot. So this next deck is the Serpent Fire Tarot, and this is the 7th and I think last edition by the Bunny Wolf. And this deck is gorgeous, is incredible, fantastic. I cannot praise this deck enough. However, the reason why I want to rehome this is because I'm actually looking for another edition, a previous edition of this deck. Ironically, one edition with rather large borders. I don't know if you know what I mean. There was a previous edition that came with really beautiful, like almost Art Deco kind of borders. I've seen it a couple of times. I don't even know which edition. Sorry, there's nudity, by the way, in this deck. So I've seen it a couple of times before. I don't even know which edition, which number edition that is. And this is a wonderful cardstock, by the way. It's one of those that, you know, when you do like this between the cards, it's a very, very beautiful kind of sound, which enhances the tactile and auditory sensation and experience with the deck. And this, as I said before, love this deck, absolutely love it. Although I did kind of stop using it when I got the Radiant Wilds tarot, because I feel like it does share a same vibe. But if I find the edition of this deck with those borders, I hope that I make sense. I don't know if anyone has that. You'll probably understand me. Obviously, if you don't, if you've never seen the other edition, you probably think that I'm crazy, but I promise you, there is a different edition of this deck, and the other edition has got borders, and ironically, I actually prefer that edition. So as soon as I find that edition, I will definitely rehome this one, which is perfectly fine, as I said. It's a beautiful cardstock. It's a kind of really soft, silky kind of matte. And the gilding is amazing. It's a bit of a, it's, let's say, between a rose gold. It's a rose gold, there you go. So it's amazing, I love it, but I would love to have the bordered edition, and that's the reason why this is in my purgatory shelf and eventually will find a new home. So this is the Serpent Fire Tarot. By the way, I do believe that there were rumors about the fact that this was the last edition, so I don't think that creator will come out with an 8th edition. So there might still be copies available of this deck somewhere at retailers. So if you want it, grab yourself a copy. So the next deck is the cutest, the cutest of them all. So this is the Tarot of the Unknown. This is referring back to the Over the Garden Wall. And so I don't know whether you're familiar with that. It's a really beautiful TV show. And all the characters are in there. So this deck is literally a deck that has been produced, not just inspired, but literally based on the garden wall. It's got a bit of an explanation. It doesn't have a little white book, but it does have a couple of cards in which they give you a little bit of an explanation, or at least a couple of keywords when it comes to the cards. I love the backs because they remind me of Halloween. This is the smaller edition. So just to give you an example, this is a standard size tarot card. There you go. And this is actually the reason why I was thinking about rehoming it, because this deck has been so difficult to find that when I saw the mini, this is the mini edition. So when I saw the mini edition, I snatched a copy. It was on a Facebook group. However, I don't know, I feel like I want the larger edition or the standard size edition, and that's the reason why, you know, if I do find the standard size edition, I would definitely rehome this one, because I just feel that I really enjoy this deck. It's really beautiful. I love Over the Garden Wall. If you haven't watched it, I highly recommend it. It depends on where you live, whether it's on Netflix or another streaming service, or perhaps you can find it on Apple TV, or perhaps you can, I don't know, still find it on YouTube. I have no idea. In any case, you just have to Google it. It's not difficult. And you know, it's once you actually watch the show, you can actually go back to the tarot and enjoy it even more. Kind of like Welcome to Night Vale, you know, the podcast. Jessica Hayward made the Hayward Tarot based on the podcast Welcome to Night Vale. And once you start listening to the podcast, the tarot actually starts making sense. It's kind of like the same thing, even though this is definitely an RWS based deck, whereas the Welcome to Night Vale or the Hayward Tarot is not. Let's put it this way. Lorna. So it's a beautiful deck. I love it, absolutely love it, but I want the larger version. That's why as soon as I get it, I'm definitely going to rehome this one. And let's come to this deck. So this is the Raincoast Visions Tarot by Christopher James, and the same author of the, let me think, the Raincoast Tarot, which is really different, and also the Crowley Tarot, which is actually more similar to this one. But let me show you this deck. So this deck is a Kickstarter that I backed, and I just received it probably 6-7 weeks ago. What I like about this deck, I love the keywords. I love the fact that you've got you know, keywords that really resonate with me. They show me my own way of actually thinking about the cards. So this is, well, this is an easy one. Nine of Swords is for anxiety for everyone. But how about adaptability for the Two of Coins? How cool is that? I love that. So all of the keywords in this deck are absolutely spot on. Not just that, but they will give you probably also a bit of a different perspective on the card. So, oh, sorry about that. Don't know what happened to the focus there. So that will give you a little bit of a different perspective on the cards. So it's a teaching deck. You can really learn a lot when it comes to this, and I really love that. I enjoy that. I'm very grateful for that. It's just the artwork that I personally I don't hate it, I don't love it, I'm neutral about it. And I see that combined with the fact that it's a very, very slippery cardstock, very glossy, very slippery cardstock, which means that it fans out like a charm. But whenever I overhand shuffle, it actually tends to fly away. I have to say, I'm not sure 100% that I'm going to reharm this deck. It's still, it's too early for me. I just wanted to show it today. Wow, that's a very intense Hermit. You will see that many of these cards are very intense. So I'm going to give it one last attempt. What I'm going to do, I'm actually going to acquire the Lilith and the Machine Oracle deck. Because I feel like those two, this one and the Lilith and the Machine, could actually pair up really well together. And I feel like sometimes when I find an Oracle deck that pairs up with a Tarot deck, that actually renews my interest in the Tarot. So that could be the case, but it's, you know, it's one of those decks that I'm not entirely sure. And I put it here today because this morning when I woke up and I was doing, you know, my research, and I was thinking about the video, and I was picking out the decks, and this one I didn't even hesitate. I literally picked it up and I said that I'm definitely going to reharm this one. But now looking at it, I'm like, perhaps I give it another chance. We'll see. It's still on my purgatory shelf. And now let's come to the Priestess of Light Oracle, which is absolutely beautiful. It's an Oracle deck by Hay House with the matte cardstock. So I worked a lot. I love the backs, by the way. I worked a lot with the Priestess of Light, then I rehomed it, and this is the second copy that I got, and I never worked with it. So this is literally practically brand new in the sense that I just removed the wrapping. And I just realized when I looked at it again, I realized that there was a reason why I rehomed it, and it was because I've literally, like in other cases in this video, I had fulfilled my my work with this deck. So the journey of this deck and myself together had reached an end when I rehomed my previous copy, and I should not have rebought it. And I think I rebought it because the artwork is fantastic. I really like it. I mean, look at that, it's amazing. I also like the fact that there's not just keywords, there's also, you know, one main keyword and then others at the bottom, or in some cases there's a message. I enjoy this deck, I love it. I pair it, for example, with Egyptian themed decks, which is, it's just fantastic. But I did my work with it. I don't know. I think it's something that I need to understand about my practice, that I need to move on. It's something that pertains to my personality. I need to move on whenever I feel that I've done what I was called to do. I need to be fearless and just move forward, because otherwise you risk stagnation, and that's me. You know, other things may work for other people, and this is a safe space, so there's absolutely no kind of judgment, and I expect no kind of judgment. But in my case, what works for me is whenever I feel working, like I'm done working with something, I have to move on. I just made a mistake of rebuying the deck, but this is a glorious deck. It's the Priestess of Light Oracle. And absolutely the same goes for this oracle deck. This is the Sacred Rebels Oracle by Alana Fairchild, artwork by Autumn Sky. This is unbelievable. I have worked so much with this deck. I almost feel like I know it by heart, even though it's a Blue Angel and it's, you know, but it's the kind of cardstock that kind of tends to stick together. This is, I think, my second copy as well, but I worked a lot with this copy. This is one of the decks that I actually use the most whenever I do a Wheel of the Year, and this is the oracle that I use as a quarterly send-off message. So basically, I do the Wheel of the Year month by month, if you're familiar with it, and then I pick each and every quarter, so quarter 1, quarter 2, etc., and I pull an oracle card, and that oracle card will give me the general send-off message for that particular quarter. And I enjoy using this deck very much because I feel like it's got that kind of vibe that, you know, it really does put the accent on something that has been already revealed by the cards in the quarter, in the 3 cards that I use for the quarter itself, but then it takes that message back and it gives you an even more insightful knowledge or view of what those messages may mean to you in specific. I love this card. So beautiful. The artwork is amazing. It's amazing. I love the fact that there's a lot of contrast between the figures in gray and the figures in full color. There's so much meaning in that. It's such a strong symbology. There's always a bit of a shadow and light, or shadow versus light kind of contrast in that, which is easily achieved, and it's actually a brilliant idea. Absolutely, it's a brilliant idea. So again, this is a fantastic deck, but again, it's one of those decks that I've used so much that I feel like I've done my job with it, so I want someone else to start working with it, and it's the Sacred Rebels Oracle. Okay, we come to the last deck. This is the Literary Witches Oracle by Taisha Kitaskaya and illustrated by Kathy Horan. This is a really beautiful deck. The reason why, and this is also my second copy. Again, it seems like there's a pattern to my buyings, to my purchases, isn't it? It looks like whenever I rehome a deck, then I feel bad about it and buy it back, and then I realize that there was a reason why I was rehoming it. So this deck and the previous one as well, so I don't know, but in any case, it came with a bar. It's a much slighter bowl than the first one that I got. If you're not familiar with this deck, these are literally witches. So these are authors, and I really love the interpretation of the artwork for each and every one of them. And I love the fact that, of course, you've got the name because you don't necessarily recognize all of them, but you also have a keyword that is associated to that. And if you go back to the guidebook, it will expand on that keyword, which is really, really beautiful. And let me say something, and I know that it's not going to be very popular what I'm going to say, but if the deck has stopped at that, so only, let's say, these cards with the characters. Sorry, I usually keep them separate, but I don't know for what reason today they're actually mixed up together. So if they had stopped at that, granted, they wouldn't have had a lot of cards. So only these ones. But these are beautiful. These are amazing. I love them. Absolutely. I use it with the Solar Occulto. It pairs up really well. I use it with the Po Tarot. Pairs up really well. I use it with, what's the other one? I use it with actually, ironically, the Raincoast Tarot. Not the Raincoast Vision, but the Raincoast Tarot. Pairs up really well. It pairs up with the Phantom Wise really well. It pairs up with I have the Somnia really well. So I love these. But then we've got these cards, and obviously you would say, well, why don't you just use these ones? Fair enough. These, I don't know, to me, they fall flat. Again, this is not a judgment. I'm not expressing a judgment. Absolutely not. I just feel that there's a lot of these cards in the economy of the deck, in the real estate of the deck, in the percentage total of the deck. I feel that, you know, if I had same number, let's say more of these cards rather than these ones, I would have been happier. And these, to me, if I use them together, they don't really tell me much. If I use them on their own, they don't have keywords. If I use them like in some sort of an intuition kind of way, yes, absolutely. But then in that case, there are other decks that have different artwork and styles that I probably prefer. And again, I really do not mean to be disrespectful at all. The fact that someone arrives to the point of actually creating something, to me, is simply amazing, because I cannot draw to save my life. Okay, I'm a fairly decent photographer, but I cannot draw. As a matter of fact, even my handwriting is terrible. So I admire the fact that someone, you know, someone gets to the point of doing something like this. How beautiful is this? It's just that in the economy of the deck, I don't know, I end up using only these ones, and then what happens is that these ones get all with the borders really dark because I use it, you know, and this one remains pristine. And it's just, it doesn't make sense. And on top of everything, I know that there's actually people who will love to have this deck, and they will love to use these two cards together. So this is why I'm going to rehome this one. Now, this was the last deck for today. Thank you so much for staying with me till the end of this video. If you like this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe. It really means the world to me. And a great day. Have a great day.